Ever wonder what war is like when you don't fire a single shot? Today we're diving deep into the 2005 film Jarhead, directed by Sam Mendes. This isn't your typical war movie filled with heroic battles and non-stop action. Instead, it's a raw psychological journey into the minds of soldiers waiting for a war that, for them, never quite happens. Based on the real-life memoir of Anthony Swofford, the film follows his story, played brilliantly by Jake Gyllenhaal. We meet Swoff, a third-generation enlistee who joins the Marines in the late 1980s. He's not driven by patriotism, but by a sense of aimless rebellion, looking for something, anything, to define himself. The first act throws us headfirst into the brutal reality of Marine Corps boot camp. It's a world of relentless physical and mental abuse, designed to break a man down and rebuild him as a Marine. The drill instructors are merciless, shouting insults, pushing recruits to their absolute limits. Through this crucible, Swofford emerges not as a gung-ho patriot, but as a sniper. He discovers a talent for marksmanship, a skill that requires patience, precision, and a cold, detached focus. He is assigned to a scout sniper platoon under the command of the charismatic and intense Staff Sergeant Sykes, played by Foxx. Sykes is the quintessential Marine tough, demanding, and utterly dedicated to the cause. He promises his men action, glory, and the chance to get some. The platoon is a tight-knit group of young men, including Swoff's spotter and closest friend, Corporal Alan Troy, played by Peter Sarsgaard. Troy is a lifer, a Marine through and through, whose entire identity is tied to the military. Their training in the desert is grueling and monotonous. They practice their deadly craft, honing their skills, all in anticipation of a real deployment. The atmosphere is thick with testosterone, boredom, and a strange mix of camaraderie and rivalry. They pass the time with crude jokes, pointless fights, and fantasies about what they'll do when they finally see combat. Then, in 1990, Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. The moment they've been training for has arrived. Operation Desert Shield begins, and Swofford's unit is deployed to the Saudi Arabian desert. The excitement is palpable. They are finally going to war. Or so they think. What follows is not the intense combat they were promised, but an agonizingly long wait. Months are spent in the vast, empty desert, under the scorching sun. The enemy is invisible. The threat is distant. The war becomes a mind-numbing routine of training, cleaning their rifles, and waiting. The heat is unbearable, the sand gets into everything, and the boredom is a corrosive acid, eating away at their sanity. The film masterfully captures this psychological unraveling. The Marines, hyped up for battle, have no outlet for their aggression and anxiety. They turn on each other. They obsess over letters from home, terrified of their girlfriends and wives cheating on them. A delayed letter or a poorly worded phrase can send a soldier into a spiral of paranoia and despair. We see this vividly with one soldier who has a complete breakdown over a tape sent by his wife. The famous gas mask scene is a perfect example of their state of mind. During a drill, Swofford struggles with his gear, and his panicked fumbling becomes a source of humiliation. The fear of a chemical attack is real, but it's the fear of failure in front of his peers that's more immediate and terrifying. Their connection to the outside world is filtered through news reports and movies about the Vietnam War. Like Apocalypse Now and The Deer Hunter, they watch these films, trying to understand the war they're supposed to be a part of, but their reality is starkly different. They're watching a war on TV just like everyone back home. Finally, Operation Desert Storm begins. The air war starts, and the sky lights up with explosions in the distance. For Swoff and his platoon, it's a spectacle, a fireworks display that they can only watch from afar. The ground war is swift and decisive, lasting only 100 hours. The infantry moves forward, but for the snipers, their opportunity to make a kill, to do the one thing they were trained for, remains elusive. The film's climax is not a firefight, but a moment of intense frustration. Swofford and Troy finally get a mission: to take out two high-ranking Iraqi officers at a distant airfield. They crawl through the desert, set up their position, and have their targets locked in their sights. This is it. The moment Swoff has been waiting for, the chance to finally fire his rifle in anger. But just as he's about to pull the trigger, a senior officer arrives and calls in an airstrike instead. The order is clear: stand down. The jets scream overhead and obliterate the target. The opportunity is gone. Swofford completely loses it. He screams at the officer, brandishing his rifle, begging for a chance to do his job. Troy has to physically restrain him, pulling him back from the brink. In that moment, all their training, all their waiting, all their sacrifice feels utterly pointless. They are spectators to their own war. Their journey through the desert continues, but now it's a landscape of surreal destruction. They encounter the highway of death, a road littered with the burnt-out husks of vehicles and the charred remains of Iraqi soldiers. It's a horrific, apocalyptic scene, but it feels disconnected, like walking through a museum of a war that happened without them. One of the most iconic and haunting images of the film is when the oil fields are set ablaze. The sky turns black, and a constant rain of black crude oil falls from the sky. The soldiers are covered in it, walking through a hellish landscape under a perpetually dark sky. A horse, completely coated in oil, gallops past them like a ghostly apparition. This isn't war as they imagined it. It's a bizarre, ecological nightmare. The war ends. The Marines celebrate, firing their rifles into the air in a frenzy of release. Swofford, notably, doesn't join in. He just stands there, watching. He never fired his rifle. The war he was trained for, the war he spent months waiting for, passed him by. The return home is just as disorienting. There are no grand parades for them. A lone veteran on the bus congratulates them. But it feels hollow. They are now civilians, trying to fit back into a world that hasn't changed, while they have been irrevocably altered. The final scenes show the aftermath. Swofford tries to adjust to normal life. We see Troy, broken and discharged, a man who has lost his identity. The camaraderie they shared in the desert is gone. Swofford reflects on his experience, concluding that a man with a rifle is a soldier, but even if he never fires it, he is still a soldier. The psychological scars of waiting for a war are just as deep as the physical scars of combat. Jarhead is a powerful anti-war film, but not in the traditional sense. It doesn't focus on the brutality of combat, but on the psychological toll of its absence. It's about the boredom, the anxiety, and the profound sense of uselessness felt by a generation of soldiers trained for a war they never got to fight. It leaves you with a haunting question. What happens to a warrior when there is no war? It's a must-watch for anyone interested in a different perspective on the military experience. A story that's less about shooting, and more about the strange, silent battles fought within the soldier's own mind. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more movie deep dives. See you in the next one.